All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr. We continue our look at SEC basketball transfers heading into the 24-25 season. And boy, do we have an interesting one that we finally got to here. The people have been begging for it. Probably multiple fan bases have been begging for this one. Aden Holloway to Alabama via Auburn. Not one you see very often in the basketball circuit. But before we get into our thoughts on Aden Holloway joining the Crimson Tide, tell you about our friends at BetOnline, your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. They've got them there. Plus all the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite team. Get the latest odds and lines, including latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every single sport out there. Head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Max, Aden Holloway is heading to Alabama. Yes, he played for Auburn last year. Again, not one we see very often, at least on the basketball front, when we kind of see a swap like this, especially for a guy that was as highly touted as he was coming out of high school. And, there were high expectations for him last year at Auburn. And, former McDonald's All-American, all-freshman guy in the league last year. Again, it wouldn't have been that unreasonable to think he would have went to another SEC school, but he goes to Alabama. And, that makes for an interesting scenario here. Of course, I think anytime someone transfers into Alabama under Nate Oats, one of the reasons has to be the style of play. And, when you look at a guard like this that has a lot of potential, has a lot of skills, it would make sense why he would want to play for Nate Oats in this up-tempo type style that they have excelled in over the past several years.
Yep, I forgot to put this up when you started talking about him after the ad read, so here we go.
You want to just look at this visual. Look
at that.
This is just wild to look at, right?
Let me scroll down a little bit on it.
It's just like, look at that photo.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What do you think? What would your reaction would have been? I mean, we're recording this on April 24th, folks. Imagine I showed you this on March 24th. What would your reaction be?
We're sitting there front row at the SEC tournament a month ago in Nashville, and we're watching these two teams play. And just the thought of this visual, us be sitting here talking about this a month later, it's just wild. But that is the transfer portal era that we're in.
We're here. And so let's talk about him. Aden Holloway, another Charlotte kid, Blake. So let's dive in a little bit. Let's dive in. We were talking about fit. I think that's been the number one area of conversation around Holloway to Alabama is scheme fit, team fit. How is it going to be better, worse, whatever you want to call it. Found this little stat. It's hard to dive into numbers here because everyone here knows. Everyone's watched Aden Holloway. If you're an Alabama fan, you know what you saw. Here's a little stat for you. Aden Holloway only attempted 18 mid-range pull-ups the entire year. If there's one thing Nate Oats, his offensive scheme, does not want you doing, taking all those contested mid-range pull-ups. You all see those shot charts after the game, and all the dots around the rim, and then all around the arc. Nothing in the mid-range. Well, hey, you have a kid in Aden Holloway here, while maybe a little bit inefficient and struggled with his shot making, he does play that Nate Oats style of offense where it's either a three ball or it's a shot at the rim.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, like we said, it really, to me, this is a matter of, okay, and I know you're going to bring up the quote in a second that he said, but this is a matter of maybe someone who, again, I feel like just thinks that he fits better with the way Alabama is going to play and maybe the way that Alabama will use him versus the way that Auburn used him. And again, I know there will be thoughts on both sides of whether that was actually the case, and certainly you can look at just kind of his minutes distribution, right? You can look at kind of how other guys maybe became bigger parts of the guard group on that Auburn team last year. And his minutes were not exactly what they were earlier in the season, but not to say they didn't play a lot, right? Because he averaged, about 20, 21 minutes a game, something like that, I believe it was.
It was 19 in SEC play, so yeah.
Okay, so 19 in SEC play. he had some of those games early on where they were all about the same. I mean, I'm looking back at it now. Like he played 27 minutes the first game of the season, played 28 in SEC play against Georgia. But really, it was all those were kind of the heights in terms of minutes played. They were all kind of around that 19 to 22-ish minute range, it seemed. You look at just kind of even too like the number of shots taken. There were some in SEC play where you're looking at some of the games and it's like 5, 3, 5, 6, not taking a lot of shots. And so, yeah, like I think that's the interesting thing for someone who, like we said, remember, coming out of high school, like he is a guy who's not used to taking 5 or 6 shots in a game. He's used to probably taking 15 plus shots in a game. And not to say that will happen necessarily at Alabama next year, but this is why the transfer portal exists, right? Is for these kind of scenarios where they're ones that you just don't think are going to happen, but maybe a guy just winds up thinking that a certain school is not the right fit for him, and he goes somewhere where he feels like there's more opportunity, and we'll see if that's the case because we know Alabama's got a pretty good roster next season, and I mean, yeah, like there are a lot of interesting things. Like you said, a guy who doesn't take a lot of mid-range shots, that's perfect for Nate Oats.
Yep.
But how exactly does he fit, and can he have that freshman to sophomore jump? Whereas maybe the expectations for him going into this past season would have been, all right, maybe he is a guy who's playing 30-something minutes a game, averaging 14 a game, but just never really got to that level last year with Auburn. So,
well, another interesting thing, Blake, is what was one of Alabama's biggest weaknesses offensively? Now we know we know what the defensive numbers looked like, but offensively, when Alabama played a team like Tennessee or something like that, we would always talk about the turnovers. Turnovers were an issue for this offense. Well, hey, guess what? Aden Holloway ranked 25th in the SEC in assist rate at 16.2% in conference and 24th in the SEC in turnover rate, just 12.4 in conference. That's a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio as a freshman in the SEC. Yes, you can look at the inefficient shooting numbers. Didn't have the best shooting year, but man, he took care of the rock. Didn't put his team in bad situations by turning the ball over in live situations. So if you're Nate Oats and you're saying, okay, we have a chance at bringing Sears back, don't know, maybe not. We've got Reitzel, we've got Youngblood and Millette coming in as 40% three-point shooters. Let's get a point guard who knows how to take care of the ball and distribute. Well, hey, Aden Holloway can do that.
Yeah, that's the question, right? Is if he can come in and just be someone who can distribute and understand that probably you're going to give away some shots to this other group of guys that are there, and we've already talked about them in other videos, but that seems like it would be a perfect role for him. And again, too, I think you hate to be, and we know, listen, we're not going to win in any scenario here. We're talking about an Alabama and Auburn kind of feud here in terms of this guy, but I know there'll be some Auburn fans that are going to say this about Holloway and say that, and I get it. I understand this. It's part of the rivalry and all this stuff. But, I mean, again, he was a freshman, and I think that's always something that not every freshman is always going to be perfect in year one. Even someone who comes out is highly regarded and thinking it's just going to be a slam dunk that, like I said, he comes in and plays 30-something minutes a game and averages 15 a game. Like, sometimes you just assume that every great freshman is going to come out and do that. But it's not always that easy. And again, for whatever reason, it did not gel probably the way that he wanted it to in his season at Auburn. And now he gets a chance to sort of restart things, again, within what may be a better system for him. Like you said, if he's just going to be someone who distributes more and certainly has proven he can take care of the ball, like you said, in the SEC. But you would also expect there's going to be some opportunities to get more of those offensive looks just within this offense and how they play, maybe than he got, at Auburn. Maybe that helps the percentages go up a little bit. Don't know. But it's all about potential. And, I mean, I think we'd be lying if we said this guy didn't have a ton of potential, right? He's got a ton of it. And I think it's going to be interesting, like we said, just to see how different the dynamic is going from Auburn to Alabama and seeing if he can improve on some of those areas that, he may have struggled in a little bit with the Tigers.
Yeah. You mentioned bringing up a quote. I won't read off the whole quote, but it was pretty popular on social media if you were following the recruitment. There's a quote came out after the commitment post came out. from Holloway, basically saying that he started out the season real good, was on great terms with the coach, and then he was kind of just taken out of the offense, couldn't find his groove, and it was really tough on him, this and that. You could find the full quote if you really look into it. What I'm taking away from that is basically, listen, there's a freshman that couldn't find his footing within his role of the offense. It was a team that played that flex cut offense that was ran through the bigs. And it was tough for Aden. It was tough schematically. Didn't fit him. That's all I'm taking. That's it. Simple as that. Not looking too much into it. I think you got a kid here that's looking for another opportunity that better fits his play style.
I think that's it. Like, I feel like that's really what this comes down to. We said it at the start. Like, we can say that to wrap it up. I feel like this is just a scenario where, like you said, for whatever reason, he felt like the end of the season, this was not the role he wanted to be in. And now he goes and gives it a shot at a place where Alabama just made the Final Four. They play a very attractive playing style offensively. And now you give it a shot and see how it works out. I mean, like I said, you never know.
That's the portal.
I mean, that's the portal. The NIL money, like, it's flowing. Like, hey, just give it a shot. See what happens. Because, again, it's not like this. We got to remember, like I said, he's still a very talented player. I mean, he didn't just come out of high school, trying to prove himself. Like, he's a very talented player, and there's a reason Auburn wanted him, right? There's a reason Alabama wanted him now. Like, he's an SEC guard. He's just got to, like we said, like all freshmen do, you improve on some of the things you struggled with in year one. You take that into year two, and now you see if it fits the way that Alabama, needs it to fit, to be someone that maybe does play, 25-plus minutes a game in Alabama, and joins what is already, like we said, just a very, very talented roster that Nate Oats has for next season. So I'm excited to see what that shift does for him because, like we said, it's a battle. You can't win when it's Alabama versus Auburn, and I know there will be the detractors and all this, but we try to be the ultimate optimists when it comes to seeing how transfers play out, and talent-wise, why would we not be optimistic about what he could do at Alabama if this turns out to be the right fit and right system for his playing style? So,
yeah, couldn't have wrapped it. I got nothing else to add. Couldn't have wrapped it up any better.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. But I appreciate you guys, too. We always do, because we're doing a video on every single SEC basketball transfer out there this offseason, and that means we got a ton of them still to come. We're playing catch-up here. We're going to do them all, so they won't always be after the second that they announce their transfer, but we will get to every one of them this offseason. So hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any of the ones that we do have coming up, and a lot more videos on the way. You can check out all of our SEC football and baseball stuff as well. We appreciate you guys watching here at Southeastern 14, and we'll talk to you again soon with more SEC basketball transfers.